This is Shoresides Investigates. I'm Ren Smith. On a sweltering summer morning in Wilmington, North Carolina, people file into the New Hanover County Courthouse. Dressed up in hot, uncomfortable clothes, many are here to stand before a judge. Among the people facing charges for driving with a revoked license or with expired tags, the two most common reasons for having to show up at the courthouse, are defendants facing marijuana-related charges. One person familiar with what they're going through, what's in front of them, is the local public defender, Jennifer Harjo.
Okay, the pronunciation of my last name is Harjo, Harjo.
Appointed as New Hanover County's first chief public defender in 2007, she heads up a team of attorneys representing those caught up in the system who can't afford representation. For cannabis users who've been watching cannabis legalization roll out across the country, state after state, she's also the bearer of some bad news. Marijuana is still very much illegal here.
Well, it's illegal in the state of North Carolina, which means it is still illegal, and it is a law that is enforced, and it's enforced under, for many purposes. It's enforced in and of itself, as if a person is in possession of the substance and it's an illegal substance, they're usually cited. If that is one's only charge, they might just be cited and told to come to court without being arrested, but one could be arrested. A lot of times the odor of marijuana is used as the basis for a stop or further investigation or whatever may ultimately result in the encounter between the police officer and the citizen. And sometimes that leads to additional charges.
At Shoresides, we wanted to understand the extent to which marijuana enforcement is still a problem in the port city, so we dug deep into public records from the Wilmington Police Department. What we discovered via our public information requests was that from 2016 to 2023, over 5,000 marijuana charges were filed in Wilmington. About 84% of those were misdemeanors, with 70% for minor infractions like possessing a half ounce of weed or having something an officer considered paraphernalia. We asked Harjo what might happen to these people you'd call casual users.
Well, someone that has a small marijuana that is caught, because I'm quite certain there are a lot of people with small amounts of marijuana that are not, but if they are generally the police officer will cite the individual to come to court and give them a citation, tell them they have to come to court on a particular day. The individual will then arrive in court, and if it is a small enough amount, and if the paraphernalia, because paraphernalia is a separate charge as well, so if the paraphernalia is for marijuana and not for any other substance, generally we're talking about a class 3 misdemeanor if the person has no prior record. If they have no prior record and it's just a class 3 with nothing else attached, then one of the things that happens is they're not entitled to have an attorney appointed if they can't afford one, because they are not eligible for immediate incarceration. They can only get probation. I mean, it sounds like a good plan in some sense, and I think the idea was that we wanted to maybe not necessarily decriminalize, but lesser criminalize marijuana and certain other crimes. And by doing that, what we also did is we said, well, they're not going to be eligible to have court-appointed attorneys. They're going to have to either get their own attorney or represent themselves, because we're not going to incarcerate them right away.
We also asked Harjo how community members could avoid being sucked into the criminal justice system in this way.
Don't possess it, number one, because it's not legal in North Carolina. You have to go to another state where it's legal. That would be the first piece of advice. And I guess number two, if you are, and that's what I tell everybody, though, if you're charged with a crime, you should seek the advice of an attorney. Your record is very important. it can have consequences on what happens later on in life.
It might also help to have the right colored skin. One other thing our research turned up in regard to Wilmington marijuana enforcement was a troubling racial disparity. Despite making up only 16% of Wilmington's population, blacks accounted for 64% of marijuana arrests. Our analysis shows that black residents were 5 times more likely to be cited and 8 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana compared to white residents.
Obviously there still is racism in this, in society. It's unfortunate, and some of it may not be intentional, but I think it still exists. And there are factors of racism that can impact wealth. It can impact poverty. It can impact education, and all of those. Perhaps one particular factor in and of itself may not impact why a particular individual is on the street smoking marijuana, but when you put them together, it leads to a more likely occasion where you're going to see persons of color being the persons that are going to be arrested, charged, and imprisoned. And while I haven't run those statistics myself, I know that being in the courtroom every day, you don't have to be a genius to look up and see the color of the skin of the people that are accused and charged and appearing before the court versus the general population. So it's just that there is a disparity.
As part of our investigation, Shoresides also mapped out where in Wilmington marijuana enforcement occurred over a 3-year period. Most pot enforcement happened in traditionally black neighborhoods, as well as downtown where there were plenty of young people. The average age of a pot offender was 29.
Does it make sense? I don't know about makes sense. I think that maybe not if you're talking about the people that are using it, because I find it hard to believe that people are just starting to use marijuana at 29. I suspect there are a lot of younger users, maybe around the university, around beaches, certainly at concerts. I as well am not able to detect the difference between real marijuana and Delta 8, but I know I smell something when I go to a lot of places, which are not in the downtown area, but I also don't see officers stopping people and searching and suspecting in those particular environments either. They seem to be in more populated areas, which are the areas where there are people that are not as wealthy, and there are people that are primarily African American. And so in that sense, it's not surprising that your statistics have revealed that the majority of people that are cited or arrested are people of color.
We asked Harjo if she was hopeful things would change.
Well, I am, but I am not going to be able to predict what our legislature may do on any particular day of the week. There are still, I'm sure there are legislators that are concerned about the safety. It is a mind-altering substance. It can have adverse impacts on the minds of young people, and that's really when people start smoking marijuana, is at a young age. And I think it may be that at some point in time in North Carolina, we're going to decide that parents and individuals and responsible adults need to decide for themselves what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
This has been Shoresides Investigates. I'm Ren Smith. Our investigation into marijuana enforcement in Wilmington has uncovered some troubling trends. It's important we keep shining a light on these issues, and we will. To dive deeper into our findings, head over to shoresides.org, where you'll find maps showing where marijuana enforcement is concentrated in Wilmington, as well as graphs breaking down who's been most impacted. Thanks for listening. Until next time, this is Ren Smith for Shoresides Investigates.